Two straight losses of their own, the Quakes are spiraling into a sea of despair, and the Hack Attack is being blamed.
I love Denise. I love the Quakes. What the hell am I supposed to do?
Both teams have a lot to prove. It's the California Quakes against the New York Enforcers. Next on Roller Jam.
From Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, this is the World Skating League. Tonight's matchup, the California Quakes take to the bank track against the New York Enforcers. Welcome, everyone, to Roller Jam Arena. I'm Ken Resnick, along with Lee Rehrman and roller derby legend Buddy Atkinson Jr. The Quakes and the Enforcers, but a different Quake and Enforcer team than we've seen in the past, as both are desperate for victories to right their sinking ships. The New York Enforcers, once thought to be the dominant team in the WSL, last time out soundly beaten, almost embarrassed by the Florida Sundogs. So you know that Captain Mark D'Amato will be turning to that five-borough lineup, the physical dominating play of Big Tim Washington, the physical play of Brian Gamble, and certainly Mark D'Amato will be digging down deep into his bag of tricks. Lord knows what he's capable of. And certainly on the women's side, the Sisters of Suffering, as intimidating as a group of women are anywhere in the WSL. And Lee Rehrman, for the California Quakes, you know normally they turn to Sean Atkinson, but there's a lot of disarray right now.
Well, look for Rusty Montgomery and Sean Atkinson, the relationship between them, which right now seems to be deteriorating, to really play into their performance here early in the game. Rusty Montgomery, as well as the Boz Squad, have made no secret that they don't like the relationship between Atkinson and Denise Loden, and that has really come to affect their play, and this disunity is leaving a lot of people in vulnerable positions, and it's affecting them and their ability to win right now.
You're exactly right. If Montgomery and Atkinson cannot work together, it could totally destroy the playbook of the California Quakes. And Buddy Atkinson, on the women's side, the speed of Heather Gunnan, the speed of Amy Craig, maybe the Bot Squad's the wild card in all this.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to see some big plays today. You're going to see hard hitting, and I'll tell you what, these two teams are going to work better than you've ever seen them work before, because I think both of them know it's on the line, and it's big play time, and it's speed.
And we'll certainly find out how they handle the pressure, because they both are in desperate need of putting one in the win column here in the World Skating League. You hear the music. When the teams are ready to come out, let's get to the action. The question for the Quakes is, can they focus on the New York Enforcers and forget their off-track problems? There is Captain Sean Atkinson. He has got to stay focused on one, Mark D'Amato, captain of the Enforcers. D'Amato, the most diabolical skater in the WSL. Those two on the same track, destined to be main event caliber.
And Rusty Montgomery, you see the distance between him and Sean Atkinson. If these Quake fans are going to see anything today, you better pay a lot of attention to Tim Washington, Ken.
And here come the New York Enforcers. The key to the New York Enforcers is number 20. He always comes out last. Captain Mark D'Amato. Hawk, we talk so much about D'Amato, but he's got a tremendous supporting cast.
Well, you know he's still smarting from the immigration nightmare with the Sundogs. You know he's going to take it out on the Quakes today, Ken.
Now our compadre, Broadway Danny Wolf, is standing by. Danny?
All right, Rusty, ever since your vicious attack on Denise Loden a few weeks ago, you've had a lot of protesters after you. Look at these people behind you with the signs. They hate you.
Yeah, well, you know what? They need to put this to bed, okay? I said it before, I'll say it again. Denise Loden put herself on this track. She put herself in the place of a man, and I treated her like a man.
You may disagree with his style of play, but you certainly can't disagree. Rusty Montgomery has really stepped up his play in the WSL. Now starting for the Enforcer women, Shelley Rossell, Janet Abraham, April Tootle, Karen Magnuson, and Linda Leisure. For the California Quake, two members of the Bod Squad, Stacy Blitz and Cindy Zimmerman, along with the Sunderman sisters, Brooke and Heather and Faith Urban. You see the racehorse start. That's the way we start every period here in the World Skating League. And right away, as is their custom, Heather Sunderman goes to the inside, tries to use those long loping strides to gain the advantage, as she does, being tracked very quickly by Linda Leisure. And Leisure now moves out in front. Leisure also becoming one of the best all-around players in the WSL. And it's Cindy Zimmerman taking the lead from Linda Leisure as Sunderman goes down, and now Cindy Zimmerman goes down. It's Linda Leisure and April Tootle as they come around the corner at this very beginning of the opening period here in the WSL. A great opportunity for the New York Enforcers. And now Brooke Sunderman drops back to try and block out, and she's going to have to do double duty to try and take care of both Leisure and April Tootle. A bit of a surprise for the Enforcers. sending April Tootle out as a jammer, hoping her size can overcome the speed of the California Quakes. And what a job we're seeing from the Brookhouse. Brooke Sunderman doing double duty, blocking out both Leisure and Tootle as they come around. Sunderman really coming into her own, stepping up her game. Now you see Karen Magnuson dropping back in the rotation, and down goes Leisure. Brooke Sunderman, and it's finally, we run out of time, a scoreless first jam.
Well, and you commented on the fact that April Tootle was out as a jammer. I tell you, Ken, Brooke Sunderman, the Brookhouse, has really come on as of late. April Tootle may be sent out to combat the size and the strength of Brooke Sunderman.
And now we're underway once again in this scoreless first period. This just the second jam, the California Quakes against the New York Enforcers. And now coming around, this is Shelley Roselle. Roselle has very quietly become one of the best jammers in the league, and it's Amy Craig out of Fairhope, Alabama, jamming for California.
And again, we cannot ignore the absence of Heather Gunnan out as a jammer for the New York Enforcers. We saw April Tootle out last jam and Shelley Roselle out this jam, Ken.
And now Amy Craig and Shelley Roselle, both speedsters, playing this one straight. And there you see the elbow from, and down goes Shelley Roselle, courtesy of Stacy Blitz. Karen Magnuson returns the favor as both Roselle and Amy Craig go down. Now they're coming up. Roselle closing in on Stacy Blitz high, and Amy Craig and Karen Magnuson low. Great job of blocking a real defensive struggle. Now Stacy Blitz ties up, and both Craig and Roselle go by, and they each put 1 point on the board.
Oh, and these two are not done going at it, Ken. Karen Magnuson and Stacy Blitz, they're both the emotional and spiritual leaders for their respective teams. This is a matchup we're going to see all day.
There's no question. They're each trying to make a statement. We're tied at 1. We'll be back. Jam Arena, we are all tied up at 1 apiece between the California Quakes and the New York Enforcers. Certainly a very low-scoring game as both teams almost going through a feeling out period. We've talked many times about the eternal strife they're both dealing with. And now it's Jamie Konomak of the Bod Squad. First time we've seen her wearing a jammer helmet, breaking out all alone, and now finding one of the New York Enforcers. Comes up from behind. This is Edie Bowman. First time we've seen Bowman. Both teams now using a jammer rotation, trying to rest their lead jammers. It is Konomak and Bowman. Both of these gals, although slight in build, are very capable of physical play, as we see the big elbow from Jamie Konomak, and now down goes Bowman. As always, you see the wide shot, Janet Abraham of the Enforcers. Once a jammer gets out, she rotates to the back. She is, of the pack, one of the best blockout blockers in all the WSL. Konomak is going to try and have to use her speed to get by Abraham, because there's no way she's going to be able to do it physically.
Well, we see Heather Gunnan with a blocker helmet on, Ken, but we don't see her hamstring wrapped. I'm still questioning why they're not sending Heather Gunnan out as a jammer. Obviously, they're in a very defensive mode, and Janet Abraham represents that defensive mode. But Edie Bowman, I don't know if she was trying to be offense or defense. She didn't get it done there.
Scoreless jam as a result. Konomak's big elbow puts Bowman down, and we are still tied at 1-1 as referee Don Lastra, back for the first time after breaking his arm in a confrontation with Mark D'Amato, reforms the pack, and now we are underway once again. And this is again a little bit of a surprise. The second time we have seen April Tootle out jamming for the New York Enforcers. Tootle 5'7", 150 pounds.
And I guess these New York Enforcers just feel like they need to send some beef out there to match up with the Bod Squad and the California Quakes, Ken.
Stacy Blitz in an unenviable position, 2-on-1, but she is able to use the skates of the Enforcer women to tie each other up. This is Malibu Stacy Blitz out of Old Wine, Iowa, 5'4", 134. Former homecoming queen coming up on the pack, trying to break this game, and we are deadlocked at 1 apiece. Now, Karen Magnuson dropping back in the rotation to try and block out Blitz. Perhaps some strategy by the Enforcer sending Magnuson back as opposed to Abraham. Magnuson certainly the more agile of the two skaters, hoping to stay with Stacy Blitz, and she uses that elbow and does exactly that as she high-fives Linda Leisure. Another scoreless jam between the Enforcers and the Quakes.
And you see Stacy Blitz a little disgusted with herself, but you called her the homecoming queen. Well, I tell you, if these two Enforcers were homecoming dates, they got stranded at the drive-in, so to speak. But you saw Malibu Stacy get around quick, and Karen Magnuson closed the door on her, Ken.
Well, that's kind of the matchup that a lot of people were targeting in this one on the women's side between Malibu Stacy Blitch and Karen Magnuson. And right now, we'd have to say it's about dead even as you see Linda Leisure breaking out for the Enforcers. And this is Amy Craig out of Fairhope, Alabama. Leisure and Craig. Craig certainly the faster of the two. Leisure more physical. And Amy Craig, realizing that Linda Leisure and one of the other Enforcers had broken off, falls off the jam, trying to keep this one a low scoring. A bit of a surprise. That's normally what we expect to see from the New York Enforcers, not a speedster from California.
And again, I'm questioning why they're not sending Heather Gunnan out to combat the speed of Amy Craig of the California Quakes. It's very surprising to me, Ken.
Well, I would suggest that Heather Gunnan has been battling a multitude of injuries, and perhaps she is not at 100%, but we will find out right now. As you said, this is the first time we've seen Gunnan with a jammer helmet, and this is Amy Craig, the two fastest girls on the track for their respective teams. And Craig with an uncharacteristic elbow sends Gunnan right down to the track. As again, it could be very apparent Heather Gunnan is not 100%. Gunnan is usually able to maintain her balance. And here comes Amy Craig, and again, Karen Magnuson back. Janet Abraham staying in the middle of the pack. Craig quick catching up to the pack very, very quickly. And there you see the cartwheel from Stacy Blitch, and it works to perfection as Amy Craig is able to go by Karen Magnuson and put a point on the board to make it 2-1.
And Karen Magnuson goes right after her, Ken. We talked a couple of games ago about, or at least I said, how that move does absolutely nothing from a strategic point of view, but Karen Magnuson didn't like it, and the move got under her skin.
Well, I would disagree. It certainly caused Magnuson to pause, and it put a point on the board. At any rate, the California Quakes move out. There you see the cartwheel by Stacy Blitch. Magnuson didn't know quite what to make of it and allowed Amy Craig to go by. You get 1 point. And now here's Sean Corbin with Roller Rules.
Roller Rules, brought to you by Dial 1-800-AT&T for collect calls.
I'm Sean Corbin, head official of the WSL. This game is fast and furious. If you blink, you might just miss something. Now let's see if you can tell how many points are scored on this jam. So how many points did you see? Wrong. Martin passes Atkinson for 1. Then passes Santiago for a 2nd. Next, he passes Montgomery and Slopey to 2 more. Then, Tom Smith passes Montgomery and Atkinson for an additional 2. That's 6 points, Sundogs. That's the way I saw it, so that's the way it is. Now you know the rule.
It is 2-1 Quakes. We'll be back. Enforcers 1 as we get ready to start the second period of play. Buddy Atkinson Jr. Typical New York Enforcers game. Keep it very low scoring, keep it very physical, try and pull it out at the very end. But my question to you is, are they maybe going to the well one too many times? Are the teams not getting wise to this?
The teams are getting wise to it, and I'll tell you what's going to happen here. These young, hard skaters have to break that pattern, and simply they're going to have to outscore the Enforcers and then ruin their big play.
Well, we will certainly find out. And on the women's side, Lee Rehrman, the Bod Squad have taken a page right out of the Sisters of Suffering's playbook.
Well, Buddy Atkinson mentioned scoring, but I want you to look at Jamie Konomak, who represents the Bod Squad, and what she does to Edie Bowman, who represents the Sisters of Suffering. She politely asks her to take a seat.
Starting for the New York Enforcers, as formidable a lineup in the WSL as there is. Mark D'Amato, Brian Gamble, Tim Washington, J.R. Widener, and Fred Eichhorn. For the California Quakes, Sean Atkinson, Rusty Montgomery, Chad Vaughn, Mark James, and Gary Lockamy. As the teams line up at the starting line, that's the way we start every period in the WSL. It is 2-1 in this one, and we are underway with period number 2. Breaking right out now for the New York Enforcers. Jamming, this is number 12, Fred Eichhorn, 5'10", 170 out of the Bronx, and number 20, Gary Lockamy out of Daytona Beach at 5'11", 180. The Enforcers, without question, the most physical team in the WSL, and that all stems from number 20, Captain Mark D'Amato. But right now, Gary Lockamy doing a good job of staying right with Fred Eichhorn. A very low-scoring game. And you see, as we close at the back of the pack, it is Atkinson and D'Amato. Keep your eye on marquee matchup. 20, D'Amato 19 in blue for the California Quakes. Sean Atkinson as they come around. Again, it's the California Quakes. Now you see Mark D'Amato setting up. He's got Gary Lockamy. He's trying to land him, and he does. The big bulldog. And Sean Sean Atkinson returns the favor, does the exact same thing to Fred Eichhorn, and now D'Amato goes after Atkinson.
And you know he's going to spend some time in the penalty box. He usually is able to craftily get things done unbeknownst to the referee, but he did that right in front of Sean Corbin, Ken, did Mark D'Amato. But you saw the Texas Bulldog 1, Texas Bulldog 2. We talked about the matchup, and there's the Pearl Harbor attack that's got Mark D'Amato right in the penalty box, as does Sean Atkinson take a seat in there.
And Gary Lockerbie was able to get by before being the recipient of that Bulldog to make it 3-2 California Quakes, as both the Enforcers and the Quakes were each credited with 1 point, as we see Atkinson in the penalty box. Now as they come around, both the California Quake Jammers are out. It is number 13 for the California Quakes, Eric Slopey, and number 12, Anthony Santiago, the two young Turks of the WSL. And very quickly on the other side of the spectrum, coming up for the Enforcers again is Fred Eichhorn. We've got two youngsters and a wily, crafty veteran, and you see the veteran experience from Fred Eichhorn as the forearm puts down both Santiago and Slopey as they come around, and now Rusty Montgomery rotates back to try and block out Fred Eichhorn, and right now he is giving you a textbook example of what a blocker should do at the rear of the pack until he uses the Texas Bulldog and takes down Fred Eichhorn. We're seeing tremendous physical play on the part of both teams, but here come the Young Turks, and now they're forced to deal with Big Tim Washington, and a double elbow takes both of them out. And again, the California Quakes this time are able to pick up 2 points as they pass on the track. And look at D'Amato and Richard Brown.
Well, and what is going on here? Richard Brown out of the stands coming up, embracing Mark D'Amato, but Rusty Montgomery and Sean Atkinson may not be talking to each other, but they sure did have the same move with the Texas Bulldog. And you saw the low rider and the white pony, Santiago and Slopey, see the same fate early by number 12 Eichhorn and later by Tim Washington.
And at the beginning, at the front of the pack, now Atkinson and D'Amato are battling out. D'Amato begins to rotate into the back of the pack, and he is followed very quickly by Sean Atkinson. And number 12, Santiago, again trying to get out, but it went down from a big elbow from J.R. Widener. And now it's Widener and John Morrissey coming out for the New York Enforcers. The Quakes lead this one by a score of 5-2, but the Enforcers now with two jammers out, and as you can see, the Quakes do not have a single jammer that has been able to break free. Remember, the WSL, the jammers must lap the pack. Once they do that, pass an opposing member of the team, that's how they score. Sean Atkinson now back for the California Quakes, trying to prevent that exact fact from happening, and right now he's doing a good job. Now Tim Washington is taking aim on Atkinson, but what a great recovery by Atkinson, who comes back and prevents Morrissey from going by, but now Mark D'Amato eliminates Sean Atkinson.
And what the heck is J.R. Widener doing? You saw Mark D'Amato go right after Sean Atkinson. We showcased this matchup, Ken, and it played out right there as Sean Atkinson tries to clear the cobwebs out of his chest. But J.R. Widener at the end of that play came, and I don't know if he was spit on him or what. He looked like a small fish going after what a shark had done to a big whale or something. But these New York Enforcers always take advantage of their opponent being down, Ken.
And John Morrissey was able to get by a fallen Sean Atkinson to put 1 point on the board to make the score California 5, New York 3. We are midway through the second period of what is becoming a very, very physical battle. You see Rusty Montgomery now giving the big whip to Anthony Santiago, springing him free. Already out for the Enforcers is Gavani and Eichhorn, but again, using that momentum, Santiago doing a great, great job of coming around, or rather, I beg your pardon, it is Morrissey and Gavani, and what a job Anthony Santiago is doing. He went down last time from the wily veteran, the elbow. This time, Santiago returns the favor. Santiago 5'10", 168 out of Orlando, Florida, and now he's faced to deal with Big Tim Washington. Washington tried to set him up for the Bulldogs. Santiago slowed down and prevented it. Now Washington, now what's he going to do? He's setting him up for the boot from Mark D'Amato. Washington kept Santiago occupied. Santiago never saw it coming.
Well, and they call Anthony Santiago the low rider. We know he does that little dance. Well, he's not dancing now. We saw 2 jams ago, Tim Washington really lay it to him. And right there, Tim Washington set up the boot from a waiting Mark D'Amato. I don't know how much of this kind of punishment that a young man like Anthony Santiago can take, Ken.
There's no question that strategy of the New York Enforcers trying to dole out as much physical punishment as they can to the California Quakes, and hopefully, I would imagine what they're trying to do with the likes of Slopey and Santiago, youngsters in the WSL. Go ahead, Hawk.
Well, and you know, with the problem with the pariah status of Sean Atkinson with the California Quakes is to combat that kind of physical play, they have to play as a team, and they're not doing it, Ken. Sean Atkinson is on an island out there.
As I started to say, I think that what the Enforcers are trying to do is hope Santiago and Slopey will be a little hesitant to deal with the physical play as Mark James gets a big elbow from D'Amato, but now Sean Atkinson takes Mark D'Amato, runs him right into the bench and comes down with a forearm. It is Atkinson and D'Amato. We talked about this one.
And time again, we see Sean Atkinson looking like a man down, and Richard Brown comes out of the stands, Ken, going after Sean Atkinson. What's he doing?
Referee Sean, the New York Enforcers 3. I'm Ken Resnick along with Lee Rehrman and roller derby legend Buddy Atkinson Jr. Buddy, it's exactly what we've come to expect from the New York Enforcers. A low-scoring, very physical game, but yet the Enforcers trail this one by 3. What does New York have to do to generate some offense?
They've got to get back into their system again, and that is get the big play, the big bang, and come back with those plays that score them the singles, the deuces, and whatever.
And certainly Lee Rehrman, when the men took the track, it was no surprise the most physical matchup proved to be between Mark D'Amato and Sean Atkinson.
Well, Buddy Atkinson just talked about big bang. I want you to take a look at some big bangs here in the World Skating League, because what we saw in the first half between Atkinson and D'Amato was basically a gunfight at the OK Corral. They're even talking to each other prior to a couple of bulldogs. First we see the bulldog by D'Amato, then we see Atkinson not to be outdone. They're squawking a little bit, but right here, Sean Atkinson tries to do a little bit of interior decorating here in the World Skating League. It's gotten ugly, it's gotten physical. It may favor the Enforcers, but Sean Atkinson took it right to him, Ken.
One thing for certain, we have not heard the end of this duo between Sean Atkinson and Mark D'Amato. It should be a very wild and woolly fourth period. Now, we have talked about the fact that California Quakes are in total disarray, very upset over the relationship between Sean Atkinson and Denise Loden of the Florida Sundogs. Now, while Sean has professed his undying love, if you will, for Denise Loden, it wasn't always that way, and some of his ex-girlfriends don't have a lot of complimentary things to say about the captain of the California Quakes.
I'm so happy that Sean is going to settle down with a nice girl like Denise. And now maybe he won't be so wacky.
Before he was a lovesick teddy bear, Sean Atkinson was a bank track Casanova.
What am I supposed to do? All the girls love the Yak Attack.
But as a significant other, Sean had some significant issues.
He used to come over after practice all sweaty and nasty and leave his clothes everywhere. Sean's idea of a romantic dinner for 2 was drive-through at Taco Bell. And what is this? I can't even give this away. I hate you. I hate you, Sean.
Oh, Daddy, it's over.
Denise, don't believe a word he says. You better watch out, girl. Sean is no good.
That's attractive. Perhaps that may give Denise Loden some cause for second thoughts. We'll see. And now Broadway Danny Wolf is standing by with an unlikely duo.
All right, it's halftime. I'm here with Little Richard Brown and Mark D'Amato. Spill the beans. You guys had a big announcement.
Here it goes. Another big announcement. Little Richard Brown and myself are forming an alliance called BAD. B-A-D, Brown and D'Amato. And our purpose is to rid the WSL of all the wimps, the panty waists, the pretty boys who get in our way.
With that jerk over there, what's his name, Attack?
Sean
and then you're going to be next to go.
Yeah, I bet you guys will probably, put out a bounty on Posse Shalene. He's got to be.
Perhaps. Let me tell you something. Richard and I have had our problems. We've put it aside. We're old and dear friends. We're from the old days. And we will, thank you, brother, we will let nothing stand in our way.
They're calling themselves BAD, Brown and D'Amato. Back to you, Cannon Hawk.
Good. Bad is good.
Talk about an unholy alliance. I don't know what to make of Richard Brown and Mark D'Amato, but I guarantee it will mean headaches for Commissioner Jerry Seltzer. Buddy Atkinson Jr., again, that first period, very physical, but one play I want to talk to you about, we've seen it before, involves Stacy Blitch and I guess her patented move. Take us through it if you would.
Well, she does is a diversion and a stop block. But watch this. Here we come straight down straightaway. She's getting set. She does it into a cartwheel, which is nifty as heck. But what really is great is watch this stop block. It's going to bang her out right there. That's a nail, and that was a hard hit. And there we go, sliding through in the inside, get her point, cut it off.
Now, buddy, we've talked about it. A lot of people think a lot of different things about this cartwheel move by Malibu Stacy Blitch. But it seems to, certainly with Karen Magnuson, it kind of catches them by surprise, throws them off their game, and then, boy, she nails her.
Exactly right. And I'll tell you what, she's using it because she has a lot of control on where she's going to stop on that track. That's why she's doing it. Rather than trying to do a broad slide, turn around, stop, she has more control doing this, and that I like the play. I think it's a great, great play.
And Hawk, very quickly, as the women get ready to take the track, you know the Sisters of Suffering are not going to want to stay with that first period being outshone by the Bot Squad.
Well, if there's a lot of sizzle to Malibu Stacy, and you know that I don't like that plan, but I'm not going to argue with Buddy Atkinson, but the Sisters of Suffering, they have substance. You got sizzle with the Bot Squad. Sisters of Suffering are known for substance. They need to put it together here in the third period.
It should be quite a third period. We'll be back. California Quakes have doubled up the Enforcers 2-1. They lead this one by a score of 6-3. I cannot remember a first half of any WSL game where no jammer has scored more than 1 point on a single jam. In fact, in the entire first period, Amy Craig accounted for both the California Quake points. Shelley Rosell had the only point for the New York Enforcer women. And right now, it's Stacy Blitch and Amy Craig coming around all alone now. A great opportunity for California to build on this lead. 6-3, and here they come around the turn. Stacy Blitch, we didn't see much of her jamming in the first period. Perhaps she wants to be the one to break that single scoring drought. But look at the Enforcers with a 3 triple pack waiting. Janet Abraham, Toodle, and Linda Leisure. And so far, Blitch and Craig are able to have no effect trying to break up that wall, led, of course, by Janet Abraham. Now April Toodle drops the arm. Now they regain once again. Craig trying to go by Linda Leisure. Here comes Karen Magnuson up from behind. A good job of Stacy Blitch. Very alert play, preventing Magnuson from getting by. But the 3-wall set of the Enforcers prevented any scoring on that jam.
And there's not many people, men or women, who can get through the Sisters of Suffering triple block like this, Ken. We all know about Janet Abraham and the Abrahammer. Well, Janet Abraham, April Toodle, and Karen Magnuson absolutely closed the door on Stacy Blitch and Amy Craig. Great job of the Sisters of Suffering.
Now remember, here in the WSL, the jammers must lap the pack. The first period, the beginning of every period in the WSL, they start from the racehorse start line. But now the jammers must get out from behind the pack, as Edie Bo Bowman is doing along with Heather Sunderman. Bowman into the rail, Sunderman coming around. Now once the jammers have lapped the pack, each time they pass a member of the opposing team, they get 1 point. Now, if you're not familiar, sometimes it gets a little confusing. They may lap a member of the opposing team, putting the point on the board. If that member of the opposing team gets back around in front, the point stays on the board. The only way they get a second point for lapping a player is to go all the way around the pack, which happens seldom. Now, Karen Magnuson doing a good job of blocking out Sunderman, but Sunderman was able to go by one of the fallen Enforcers to put points on the board. Still some time left. Now look at Magnuson. Revs Sunderman head first into the rail. That is the kind of physical play the New York Enforcers are noted for. They try to intimidate every other team in the WSL.
Well, and Karen Magnuson is a much better and fairer match with Stacy Blitch, but you see her go after the head of Heather Sunderman, who's no match for her. Sean Atkinson and his girlfriend, Denise Loden, look on. You have to wonder what's going through the mind of the pariah, Sean Atkinson.
You've got to give Heather Sunderman credit. She went head first into the rail, but was able to recoup and add 2 points on the board. With Quakes pulling away in this very low-scoring one, it is 8-3. Now Shelley Rosell coming out and Amy Craig. Rosell, very, very physical player, also deceptively quick, as you see, as she is able to stay stride for stride with Amy Craig out of Fairhope, Alabama. As they fly around the track, it's Rosell and Craig. Rosell now the elbow slows Craig down. Good job of staying under balance. You see Karen Magnuson in the penalty box, a 1-jam penalty. A good opportunity for California as they are skating with a woman advantage, but the big elbow from Shelley Rosell sends Craig down, and she flies past Faith Urban and picks up a point. Shelley Rosell doing a good job picks up 2 points for the New York Enforcers, and there you see her cutting off the jam, high-fiving big Janet Abraham.
Well, I've been questioning all day why the New York Enforcers have not been using Heather Gunnan. She's their big gun as a scorer, but it shows how much I know is Janet Abraham. We saw her block it a few moments ago, preventing points by the Quakes. Well, there we saw her paving the way for Shelley Russell to score points for the New York Enforcers. Great job of the Sisters of Suffolk.
Again, we talk about how the Enforcers, their physical play, they try and intimidate other teams. The strategy of New York in every game they skate is to keep the scoring low, as we see Sydney Zimmerman coming out now for the California Quakes, along with, this is number 38, Linda Leisure for the New York Enforcers. New York tries to physically intimidate you, keep the scoring low. They realize their team is built for physical style of play. They are not one of the quickest teams in the WSL. If a team gets out to a big lead, New York has a real problem trying to come from very far behind because they just don't have the speed. They try and keep it low, and they're getting their wish right now. And now you see Sydney Zimmerman finally able to break by Leisure, but Janet Abraham sends Sydney Zimmerman down. Abraham goes down herself, as you see Linda Leisure now closing on Brooke Sunderman. Sunderman doing a good job of blocking her out with the knee. That's one of the other enforcers goes by, but remember, that's no points. Brooke Sunderman is wearing the white blocker helmet. Only the jammers with the black stripe helmets can score in the WSL.
Well, and you see Karen Magnuson going after Stacy Blitch. We've showcased this matchup on the track. Well, this is the second time. This is the third period. They also did it the first period, that they've taken it well after the whistle of the jam off the track, almost into the stands, kid.
Extremely low. It is still 8-5 California Quakes. Normally 3 points is nothing in the WSL, but in this kind of a game, it's a very big lead, as once again the Quakes turn to Amy Craig, and now you see Heather Gunnan finally out, if memory serves me, the first time in this period. Gunnan has had a jammer helmet on, and down she goes from Amy Craig.
Well, and Heather Gunnan's a street shooter, so to speak, Ken. She doesn't play very well until she gets warmed up, and she's not had a chance to warm up for today.
Amy Craig doing a good job, went right by Janet Abraham. Remember, as I talked about, once you pass a skater, even though Abraham went back out in front, that point stays on the board. And now finally you see Heather Gunnan catching up. Stacy Blitz setting up a big whipped Amy Craig and annihilated Heather Gunnan. A twofer right there from Malibu Stacy Blitz. And again, I would suggest Heather Gunnan, although not taped up where we can see it, is far from 100%. She has really battled a multitude of injuries this season as she goes toe-to-toe now with Amy Craig.
Well, we know these two have speed, but they also have a little bit of animosity toward each other. To Amy Craig of the California Quakes and Heather Gunnan of the New York Enforcers. But Ken, I got to tell you, I think Amy Craig is getting the better of this because she's into the flow of the game. Heather Gunnan is not into the flow of the game. I don't think she's injured. I just think she's not warmed up.
Fourth or sixth. Welcome back, everyone, to Roller Jam Arena. It's the fourth period. The men are getting ready to take the track, and certainly the California Quakes have got to be very pleased with the results they've seen so far. The New York Enforcers still struggling to get their offense going. In fact, Shelley Russell single-handedly has accounted for a full 50% of the total Enforcer points, and Buddy Atkinson Jr. in that third period. Shelley Russell's play came as close to anything as bringing New York back into this game. If you would, take us through it on the telestrator.
Russell throws a terrific block right here on Amy. Bang, down she goes. It's over for that young lady. Now she regains it, comes back, Urban goes over the rail. Janet Abraham is knocking people around, and here comes the big and last one. A bang straight out, gone, and we got 2 big points.
Now, if an alliance between Mark D'Amato and Richard Brown isn't bad enough, what are they trying to do? Recruit Rusty Montgomery?
Well, if bad is good, it sure isn't good for Sean Atkinson. And we saw in the second period, Ken, little Richard came out of the stands to get in a fight with Sean Atkinson, who was battling with Mark D'Amato.
Always we start from the starting line at the beginning of every period here in the WSL, and a very physical move, something we're a little unaccustomed to seeing from number 13 of the California Quakes, Eric Slope. Perhaps California talked about it at halftime, but there you see the big elbow from number 19 coming out. This is Brian Gamble. This is the first time all game we've seen Gamble with a jammer helmet. Gamble 5'11", 200 pounds out of Queens.
And they seem to keep going with this strategy of sending out bigger, uncharacteristic jammers to these New York Enforcers, Ken.
Well, there's no question that New York needs to get some kind of offense going. They've got the low-scoring game, but I don't think they like trailing in it. Rusty Montgomery now blocks out Brian Gamble. Certainly Gamble not as agile as you see Richard Brown talking strategy. Now, I can't understand. What's he doing? That's Jason McDaniel and Nevada Hot Dice. What in the world is going on in the WSL? But one thing that's going on is Rusty Montgomery deciding to take matters into his own hands. Sets Gamble up for the skyscraper from Sean Atkinson. The attack is back.
Well, and these guys seem to have put the nightmare of the inter-squad feud aside for one moment, and the recipient of the skyscraper of Sean Atkinson is a trembling Brian Gamble, and it takes no time at all for him to get into it with Mark D'Amato, Ken.
Now, one thing you'll notice right there, Gamble passed Atkinson, even though he was the recipient of the skyscraper. It still counts. 1 point for Gamble, the New York Enforcers, but talk about a hard-earned point, to say the least. It is now 11-7 California. Down goes John Morrissey. Morrissey got a little too fast for his own skates. And now it's up to number 15, Dan Gavani of the New York Enforcers, and number 20, Gary Lockamy. Lockamy 5'11", 180. Gavani 5'10", 210. Certainly the size advantage to Dan Gavani, and Gavani a very wily and crafty veteran. And now Big Tim Washington absolutely drops Mark James in his tracks. And again, Lockamy does the same to Dan Gavani. Great move by Tim Washington, seeing Mark James beginning to break out. Washington had not rotated back. You see him still at the front of the pack, preventing Mark James from getting out. Remember, the WSL, you must lap the field. And now Big Tim Washington sets him up. And now tried to go for a backdrop, but was unable to get Lockamy up. But just a forearm absolutely levels Gary Lockamy. The physical play of the New York Enforcers once again rears its head.
Well, Sean Atkinson came over to take up for his teammates. I'm not sure. I guess they appreciate it here. But I think that the California Quakes set Gary Lockamy out. He's a little bit bigger than Santiago and Slopey. We saw in the first half they didn't have much success, did Santiago and Slopey. Well, going against Tim Washington, Gary Lockamy didn't have much success either.
And you see Washington, a one-jam penalty, but Don Laster right on the spot after the backdrop. Washington lost his balance, fell forward, and enabled Lockamy to get by him, even though Lockamy was laying on the track. The point still counts. It's now 12-7 California, but certainly the last two jams, Brian Gamble and Gary Lockamy, putting points on the board, but talk about paying for it physically at a dear price. And now you see Rusty Montgomery giving the big whip to number 12, Anthony Santiago, as they come around. Santiago trying to catch up with J.R. Widener. Widener, remember, just coming back from that torn ACL, goes right into the rail, courtesy of Santiago. And Santiago now perhaps he'll try and get on his love machine, as he calls it. Doesn't do so. Concentrates now, I don't imagine. Great move. Hops right over the fallen J.R. Widener. And now he has to deal with Mark D'Amato, the captain, the diabolical captain of the New York Enforcers. D'Amato doing an excellent job of blocking out. You see Sean Atkinson comes back with a bench. What in the world is Atkinson thinking? And now continues to hammer away at D'Amato.
Well, and Sean Atkinson never to be outdone. We've talked about him being almost a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer to these California Quakes. Well, his Quakes now seem to have let him back into the reindeer games as he goes right after Mark D'Amato with a bench. And who took a shot at him earlier, little Richard Brown, comes out of the stands again, Ken. Unbelievable.
And now the penalty to Sean Atkinson for pulling that bench. The referees waved off all of the points, so it goes down as scoreless. It is still 12-7 California Quakes. We'll be back.
Now with one of their big guns, if not their biggest gun, Sean Atkinson into the penalty box.
Although the way Atkinson has been playing, I'm not necessarily certain that's a bad thing for the California Quakes. At any rate, someone from the Enforcers is going to have to step up. They certainly need some offense, and we'll see who breaks out. They're trying to get one of their jammers free. Coming up on the inside, this is number 12 for California, Fred Eichhorn, 5'10", 170. And now J.R. Widener takes the inside and is able to fly right by Gary Lockamy. So it comes down right now. It's on the shoulders of J.R. Widener and Fred Eichhorn as they dispatch one of the California Quakes very quickly. It's 11 and 12. Widener is 11, 12 is Eichhorn. They're trailing in this one by a score of 12-7. New York with a one-man advantage as Sean Atkinson is in the penalty box, but it remains to be seen just who that's an advantage for as Atkinson stares intently on the action. You see both the California Quake jammers at the front. They never got out. Brian Gamble does a spin around, lays back. Both Widener and Eichhorn go by one. Now they both go by Rusty Montgomery. This is what New York was waiting for, as both Widener and Eichhorn each pick up a deuce. 4 points go on the scoreboard for the New York Enforcers, and suddenly they trail it by one. And how many times, as we look at J.R. Widener skate around, have we seen New York when we were certain they were going to get beat? Suddenly, as we come down to the final minute, they are right back in it, trailing by one.
And well, they finally made me look smart, Ken. I said it was a golden opportunity for him with Atkinson in the penalty box. They did just that, score points, and Atkinson now has a jammer helmet on.
Well, perhaps Sean Atkinson is telling his team, everything else aside, climb on my back. I'm going to win this for you. Atkinson almost goes down at the top of the track. We're not used to seeing Sean Atkinson fly around. And look who's coming up from behind, also with a jammer helmet. Mark D'Amato, the two team captains. Atkinson, 19 in blue, D'Amato, 20 in black. It's resting on their shoulders. How fitting is it? We talked about the marquee matchup. We talked about how they're the captains of both their teams are leaders. And down goes D'Amato. Atkinson cranked up the elbow. Remember, California leads it by one. D'Amato just getting up. If Sean Atkinson was smart, he could cut off the jab, but he's not thinking that way. Here's big Jim Washington taking a beat. Atkinson goes right by him, puts another point on the board. Now he goes down and underneath Brian Gamble. D'Amato is able to miss. Remember, D'Amato was a jammer, but it did left. Captain Sean Atkinson goes by Washington, goes by Gamble, goes by D'Amato. Puts 3 big points on the board as the California Quakes win this one by a score of 15-11. And now here comes D'Amato. D'Amato goes south of the Mason-Dixon line.
And the frustration for Mark D'Amato continues. If it's not immigration, it's losing at the hands of Sean Atkinson of the California Quakes. Unbelievable. Sean Atkinson brings victory back from the jaws of defeat.
In effect, Sean Atkinson told his team, climb on my shoulders, I'll take you home, buddy. Atkinson, he did just that.
The attack came through hard and strong and made it a game.
Atkinson took a page out of Mark D'Amato's book, getting it done at the end.
Well, Ken, he makes our job easy because he gives us so much to talk about. God bless you, Sean Atkinson. Attack.
Broadway Danny Wolf is standing by with Sean Atkinson. Danny?
It's very strange to say I'm standing between two bitter enemies because they're wearing the same uniforms. And I want to start with you, Rusty Montgomery. What the heck will get into your mind to start in the middle of the game to go confer with Little Richard Brown and Mark D'Amato, someone you're skating against?
You know what, Danny? I'm not going to go into that right now. Okay, what we were talking about is what we were talking about, and it's really none of your business.
That's why he's not going to go into. Let me tell you, he's upset that I'm dating Denise. Well, I tell you what, I'm tired of it. I'm loyal to the team. Straighten up, brother. Your attitude's going to be adjusted.
Well, the Quakes put one in the win column, but a lot of questions still need to be answered. Buddy Atkinson, speaking of questions, what's wrong with the New York Enforcers?
They're out of their game plan. Simple as that. They're not doing the big plays that they like to do and get away with them, and they're not coming back to do the stuff that they know how to do.
And Lee Rehrman, I certainly would like to be a fly on the wall of the California Quakes locker room this week.
Well, the Bod Squad and these guys, including Rusty Montgomery, have made no secret that they cannot stand this relationship. How many times can they go to the well and pull victory with this kind of turbulence off the track? Who knows, but you got to stay tuned to the World Skating League to find out.
For Broadway, Danny Wolf, Lee Rehrman, our living legend, Buddy Atkinson Jr., I'm Ken Resnick saying have a great week. We'll see you again next time right here on Roller Jam. So long, everybody.